And welcome back to another super exciting episode of Voices of Video. So today I am joined by Tim Baldwin from Zixi. And Tim, thank you for joining us. We've been talking about doing this interview for way too long. We finally are here.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to be here. We've been working on our integration with the NETINT VPUs, and now we're ready to launch that
It's
integration,
great
launch
to
the
be
product.
great to be talking.
Yep.
Yeah. It's really great to be talking about it. Well, why don't you start by giving a quick introduction, who you are, and what you do at Zixi, and then really what we're here, to do is to showcase your platform. So I think it would be good to tell the listeners what Zixi has built, what you are just on the cusp of launching. In fact, by the time this goes live, this interview, the platform should be launched, I assume.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so my name's Tim Baldwin, and I am VP of Product Management at Zixi. Been with the company for about 7 years. And what Zixi provides to the market is a IP-based live video platform that delivers unmatched quality, reliability, and security and observability, and generally at the lowest total cost of ownership. There's ways to do this in the market, but we seem to excel at those. Uh, our platform, the way to think about our platform is who uses our platform. So it's used by broadcasters, it's used by virtual MVPDs, it's used by digital content platforms, OTT providers, and they're doing a number of things with our platform. In general, they're ingesting live feeds and delivering live feeds, but integrated with that are things like SCUDdy 224 based market switching and blackout, SCUDdy 35 conditioning and manipulation, stream normalization, some lightweight production operations, and of course, what we're here to talk about today is some transcoding features for OTT distribution or bitrate normalization and other use cases like that.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, Tim, but probably a lot of our listeners, when they hear Zixi, they think of your protocol for reliably delivering streams. Maybe rewind a bit and, explain the roots of the company, what the original and still, I think the foundational technology is. And then, how did you get to building a platform? I'm guessing that a lot of people actually, or some people don't know that you guys have a platform. So
Yeah, absolutely, and we still run into this. So yeah, in the early days, Zixi built uh, a media server called the Zixi Broadcaster, and this media server supported a protocol that we developed, which we called the Zixi protocol. The protocol supports both ARQ and FEC based error recovery. So it excels at um, transporting live streams over unmanaged networks like the public internet, and and doing any error recovery necessary so that what you send on the sending side is what's received on the receiving side. So initially there was a media server with essentially that protocol plus your other kind of local network protocols that you used, like UDP or RTP. Over time, as our customers wanted to scale their deployments, they might have been, maybe initially they were running one Zixi broadcaster with 50 streams on it, but then they needed to scale up to 3,000 streams, so they um, needed to manage maybe 30 Zixi broadcasters. So what we developed next, and this is really where the platform started evolving, is a orchestration and control plane called ZenMaster, and this is a SaaS style multi-tenant uh, control plane. So you log into ZenMaster, and then from there you can manage one or 100 Zixi broadcasters, and you could manage 10 streams or 10,000 streams. So that's really where the platform kind of started to become what you might think of as a platform. What we also decided to do, along the way, was support the other protocols. I mean, it's no mystery to others and to everyone in the industry that there are other protocols that do ARQ recovery. We are a member of the RIST working group, and so we added RIST to to our platform. And then along the way, we also added SRT. So at this point, really we look at the value we bring to the market is the whole platform, and that platform supports the Zixi protocol, it supports SRT, it supports RIST, RTP, RTMP, every protocol that you might need. So we're generally protocol agnostic at this point. We still see advantages of the Zixi protocol in
Of
in
course.
many scenarios, but what we heard from our customers is they often can't control what protocol needs to be used because the other party in their relationship may be stuck with using RIST or maybe stuck with using SRT.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so so we support all of them, and and we think that provides the most flexibility for our customers. And when they can use the Zixi protocol, there are clear advantages, especially around TCO, the cost, egress costs, and such. But we support all the protocols so that we really give our customers the broadest solution, with the most flexibility, so for their needs.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense, and I can imagine that you sort of hinted at this. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but we often end up building platforms not because it's like, hey, let's go build a platform. It's like, hey, let's do something that's going to bring value to the customer. And like you said, organizing and managing all in one place and monitoring all those Zixi servers, well, that would add a lot of value, right? But then probably 3 days after you launched it, you got the first call. Hey, it'd be cool if you guys did. And then it's like, oh, we could do that. Next thing you know, you built a platform, right?
Well, true. Yeah. I mean, initially it was
Yeah.
really about enabling scale. But
Yeah,
then,
that's
of
right.
course, once customers are embedded, with using the platform, as they're trying to modernize their live video workflows, they
Yeah.
have needs. They have needs
Yeah.
for things like doing market switching and blackout, or doing stream normalization. If you're using our platform to ingest live streams from 200 different sources, it's going to be different codecs coming in, it's going to be different
Yeah.
protocols, and you may want to normalize all of that to one codec, one bit rate, one PID map structure, so that when you send all of those streams you're ingesting in downstream, they're going downstream in a very standardized, with standardized characteristics.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So, you obviously your customer base is pretty diverse. Of course, for the Zixi protocol, but
Mhm.
on the platform, um, is it safe to assume that these are still more premium content streams? Maybe such as live sports, or give us a little better picture, complete picture of what the customers look like, what kinds of content is being streamed and distributed.
Yep, yep, absolutely. There's So it's everything from live events, which is mostly sports content, to linear aggregation of channels.
Mm,
Um, think of if you're one of your virtual MVPDs that you might access on your Roku box or on Apple
mhm,
TV.
mm,
They would be using Zixi to aggregate lots of linear channels.
mm,
And then also, what's on the horizon right now is with the FCC looking to potentially sell off the C-band spectrum, the traditional broadcasters and traditional sports entities like RSNs, that have been using satellite are now needing to think about transitioning to IP. So these are the types of customers. In terms of the is it premium content or not? What's really interesting is, it like, let's take live sports. Our customers who are delivering live sports to their subscribers. It started out as premium content, but now with the automation that our platform provides, what we're
mm,
seeing is they're able to scale up their operations where they're able to deliver tier two and tier three sports to their subscribers in a more automated way, which you would say just from a cost standpoint they weren't able to do before. And so we're seeing that expand. We're seeing the use of our platform grow from what would be premium content, network and cable channels and major league sports to a much larger set of sporting events. Let's
Yeah.
say because there's automation in the platform that removes the kind of the manual production work.
Interesting. What is, can you elaborate on what that automation is? What exactly have you automated?
Absolutely. So some good examples are, and we call this, we have we think about this as, let's say, lightweight production. So, you may have a produced video feed that comes from a sporting event. But then when our customer wants to deliver that to their subscriber base, they, they'll need pre-rolls and post rolls and maybe mid rolls inserted in that. And those pre rolls and post rolls, that you might want to not just have that be a boring static slate, but actually have it be dynamic content. So one way our customers are using our platform is they use our transcoding capability with HTML overlay that's integrated into our transcoding. To actually create those pre-rolls and mid-rolls and post-rolls. And so they're controlling the dynamic content that's in these pre-rolls and post-rolls. And then they use the seamless switching capability we have to do a clean switch from pre-roll to the main content, the sports content, and then from the sports content over to mid-rolls and back. So it's and all that is automated via APIs. So instead of, for every one of these games, it might be, 10,000 games a year. Instead of having a live operator, uh, doing this production work, switching back and forth, that's all happening in an automated way using some of these capabilities that we've built on top of the transcoding in our platform.
So, Tim, let me ask you this question. Who are your competitors? And and I'll kind of unpack what I'm really looking for is, video is so complex, and it's interesting. You just explained about the automation and the special capabilities you have built in. And I find that um, when you walk the aisles of NAB, the halls of IBC, or any major show around the world, you can walk past booth after booth after booth. That the core messaging is nearly identical, especially in the areas of video platforms. But then when you go talk, when you walk in each booth and you kind of talk and you get a demo, there always is like one or two special features that's kind of like, oh, I see why, maybe this platform is really well suited for, a very specific application. And even though on the surface, it's yet another streaming platform. So I'm just curious, who are your competitors? Because it sounds to me like you have a lot more than just a live streaming platform, you know. So are you competing against in-house, build, in other words, build versus buy? Are there other platforms that have kind of similar capabilities and you're out there, or who do you compete against when you're out selling your platform?
Yeah, maybe let me start with kind of with categories of competitors.
Mm,
You brought up in-house, so we do see some DIY in-house development. Uh, and generally that's wrapped around the SRT protocol, which makes which solves one piece of that development. Um, but it's still a lot of work to develop a platform
yes, it
for
is.
IP video delivery, and and then if you think about like the larger aspect of managing multiple servers that are all transporting video, and then there's metrics data that's being collected and bringing all that metrics back into a central location and being able to view it historically. So it's a lot of work. We've had a number of customers who started out with DIY and then ultimately decided they wanted to buy instead. and have transitioned over to us. Um, and then occasionally we do see it going the other way as well, where a customer might decide to go DIY. But it's an investment. I'd say it's not money savings at that point,
Yeah.
because you're hiring an engineering team, and that has
Yeah.
an ongoing cost. So
Yeah.
that
Absolutely.
is one category of competitor. Another category I would say are the traditional hardware vendors that have been in the broadcast market for a long time.
Hmm.
What we are seeing in the last year or two is they're realizing that using the cloud for a significant part of your IP video workflows is what customers want. So they've been transitioning over to having software based solutions. So they may have physical hardware encoder and hardware decoder, which still makes sense because those are on prem. Um, but but where they might have had a hardware based media server that could take lots of streams in, lots of streams out,
Yeah.
we're seeing that move over to software based solutions so that they can be cloud based. Most of those is kind of a lift and shift, so they're taking what was running on local hardware and just forcing it onto the cloud. It wasn't necessarily designed to be cloud based.
Yeah.
But that's another category. So the traditional vendors that are incumbents in almost every
Sure.
broadcast company that we know are moving that direction. And then there are a handful of what I'd say smaller software companies like Zixi that have developed solutions from scratch, generally still wrapped around SRT
Hmm.
because that is a common thread. Um, so there's a handful in that category as well that we see when we're out talking to our
Yeah.
customers.
Yeah. Got it. Got it. So let's talk about the journey to adding transcoding to the platform. On one hand, completely obvious. As you even said, there's a lot of applications where you need to maybe normalize. You have different inputs coming in, different resolutions, frame rates, even different codecs, and so then that's an obvious application for transcoding. But walk us through the journey. Like, when did you add transcoding? What was your first solution built around? And then, obvious question, how did you end up migrating to VPUs?
Yep. Yeah. So transcoding was added to the platform. I'd say it was feature complete probably around 2017,
Mm,
2018. And at that time, we were offering both a CPU based solution with using the X264 library and um, using the NVIDIA GPUs for a hardware
mm-hmm.
based solution.
Makes
Um,
sense. Yeah.
yeah, and and of course over time we've added more features layered on top of transcoding, like HTML overlay. Um, uh, but the core transcoding features have been there for a long time, and like we talked about, used for bitrate normalization or for OGT workflows, creating your bitrate ladder, and then we have a HLS and dash packager that can then push those streams up to origin.
Yeah.
Um, the journey to the VPU. So I guess there's a couple reasons why we really started thinking about NetInt and VPUs. One was availability of GPUs on the cloud providers, um, and as the AI has become more interesting to the world,
Mhm.
um, the cloud providers are focusing more on deploying the NVIDIA GPUs that are meant for AI.
Meant for inferencing,
Yeah,
meant
for
for
inferencing.
AI, not video encoding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So these are like the from NVIDIA product naming, like an H100, or
Yeah,
in
exactly.
that generation, or
Yeah.
maybe the A100 in the Ampere generation. Um, and what makes the most sense for transcoding workflows are small GPUs that that are actually work with transcoding. So one thing about the larger NVIDIA GPUs, like the 100 series, is they actually removed the
They
cores
don't
that
even
you need,
have the video IP core.
the
Yeah.
video cores, right?
Yeah.
So that was one thing, is just seeing the availability of GPUs on the clouds that were applicable for transcoding. It's not, I'd say that availability hasn't decreased, but it hasn't increased as as the needs increase. And we've also had customers reflect back to us that they've had situations where, let's say it's a customer doing live events, they needed to spin something up, and at the time they spun it up, they actually couldn't get the GPU when they needed it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's
um,
a big problem. You have a big live
exactly.
event, you can't get the machine you need. That's
Exactly. So we have some customers that that today are using our CPU based transcoding precisely because they know they can get the machine with the
yeah.
CPU, and they don't know they can get a GPU at the time they need it, and that's become more obvious to us as our customer base has expanded to be more live event based customers. With linear feeds, it's kind of set and forget, and so years ago when we first introduced transcoding, we didn't see that as much. The other piece of this is we offer a service on top of our platform called Zixi as a service, where we're hosting the infrastructure, our software and the infrastructure for our customers, for those customers that just aren't ready to use their own cloud instances and
Yeah.
manage some of their infrastructure themselves. And uh, and what so with our Zixi as a service uh, product, we were also having trouble getting access to GPUs on the hosting providers that we use for that. Um, but what we did find is one of the providers that we use for that is Akamai Connected Cloud, and Akamai and NetInt have worked closely together to make the NetInt VPUs available.
Yeah.
So when we saw that convergence, Akamai Connected Cloud and NetInt, that convergence happening, that was, I'd say that was probably the final straw, and saying,
Yeah.
what, this makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's integrate NetInt, because then we know that for our Zixi as a service product line, we can for those customers that need transcoding as part of that service, we can deploy them on Akamai Connected Cloud, where we will have NetInt VPUs, and
Mhm.
and all is good. So
Yeah.
I'd say that's really the journey towards us integrating the NetInt VPU.
Yeah, it's great. It's a good story. I know I don't know if our first contact was 2023 at IBC, but I know we were right across the aisle from each other, or
Yep. Yep.
very very close anyway. Our booths looked at each other, even though yours is much bigger than ours, especially at that time. Um, but I know that we started the conversation before we had done the integration on Akamai,
Hmm.
and that was one of the reasons. And it's why we're very pleased with with our Akamai relationship. We're pleased with CDN 77 and
Hmm.
i3D, and there's another one coming that soon in the new year we'll be able to talk about, because it does open up availability now beyond having to host it yourself. And I think that's a real important point, because maybe not everybody in the industry knows that now VPUs are available on, yeah, there's a few of the kind of the real big public clouds that we're not quite there yet, but stay tuned. But for now, there's some wonderful cloud environments where if you say, "Hey, I don't want to host it," or "I can't," we've had very large services come to us, and shockingly big services, and say, we literally don't have a data center to do an evaluation of your hardware in. Like if you ship us a card, it's going to go in an engineer's computer underneath his desk. And we're like, really? Like, you guys have like 200 million subscribers, or
Yep.
whatever,
Yep.
like what? So, yeah. I think a question that, a lot of the listeners would be very intrigued to hear your answers is, what the what your evaluation process is like or was like, how you look at encoding, how you make decisions, and I would actually like you to answer this, broader than just the VPU. Again, every platform has its priorities, right?
Hmm.
So it's easy in the industry to say, oh, of course we care about quality, we care about, bitrate efficiency, we care all the usual, and everyone does. But
Hmm.
let's face it, they're like levers, right? So some platforms they really crank forward the quality lever, but they're willing to say, we're willing to compromise a little bit on bitrate efficiency. Others might be bitrate, others might be power consumption, other, there's TCO, total cost of ownership. And so how does Zixi think about those decisions, and what did that look like even as you were looking at VPUs or as you're looking at other technologies that you're wanting to integrate or thinking about integrating?
Right. Yeah, I think, for us, we have to put ourselves in our customer's shoes because ultimately
Mm,
we're not the one running the transcoding machine, aside from the Zixi as a service that I
yeah,
mentioned. And so the customer requirements, I'd say, I mean, if I think about what the customers care about, definitely there's a certain level of quality that needs to be achieved, to the consumer.
yeah,
I I would say with the modern generation of NVIDIA GPUs and with, current versions of x264, x265, um, and NetInt and other codec providers, I
yeah,
think everyone meets that threshold. If you went back to, an NVIDIA GPU from, 6 years ago, there you know there was, the broadcasters would
yeah,
look at those transcoded streams and say,
yeah,
it might
yeah,
not be there yet.
yeah,
But today, I think everyone checks that box. The quality is
yeah,
suitable. So, and then on the bit rate, like, how much, what bit rate's necessary to achieve the quality. I think even there, the modern generation of each of these, approaches of doing transcoding, each of these codec, whether it's hardware or software,
yeah,
are good enough. And at the same time, go back 10 or 15 years, people had, very, the data rates available on their mobile phones or at home or whatever were,
yeah,
quite limited. Now,
yeah, that's right.
in most modern, countries, your internet connection, the speeds is far beyond what you need. So
That's
even the
right.
bit rate of the streams is um, not super critical. There are some requirements that come along that, some of the solutions, can satisfy and can't. There are things like being able to do 422 color
Yeah,
space.
yeah, that's
Uh,
right.
yeah, some solutions can do that right now, and other ones can't.
Yeah,
And 10-bit HDR.
yeah,
You know, it so it really depends on the customer and what the requirements are. There are also frame rate conversion requirements, which is, uh, part of the transcoding process, but not really inside,
yeah,
the codex itself, that we have to, uh, think about, especially, outside of North America when we're in Europe or Japan, for instance, where the frame rates are different than North American content. Yeah, I'd say so it's a variety of, there's just a variety of requirements, but overall, yeah, all the solutions out there produce good quality at good bit rates.
yeah,
So if that's the foundation now, then we
yeah,
can start thinking about scalability. If I have a Zixi broadcaster instance with an NVIDIA GPU in it, and I can run, let's say, maybe 10 transcodes on that, versus if I have a VPU in that same instance and I can run 32 or 50
that's
transcodes.
right.
Um,
Yeah,
Now, if I'm managing 600 channels, all of a sudden that's fewer instances of the Zixi broadcaster, fewer machines that I'm needing to manage. So that's an advantage. It's you know
Yeah.
it's it
I
it's
mean,
just
that's
it's a
direct
workflow advantage.
OpEx savings,
It,
right? Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
it translates very precisely to I know what my rack space cost is, my connectivity, my
Exactly.
energy per server. And if I
Yep.
can take, if I had 10, but I can now take 5 or 8 of those machines out of the rack or redeploy them for something else. I mean, it's
Yeah, especially in the
it's a
cloud
no
context.
brainer, right?
In the cloud context, your the cost of the virtual machines
Yeah.
is directly related to the power consumption, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's right.
so yes, I mean if you have an on-prem data center, then
Yeah.
you're probably not paying that much attention. But most of our customers are doing their transcoding in the cloud. That is, that's that's where things have moved. It wasn't that way in the early days of our transcoding feature in our platform, let's say 2017.
Yeah.
Maybe it was then 20% in the cloud and 80% on-prem, but now I'd say it's flipped.
It's
80% in the
flipped.
cloud and 20% on-prem.
Yeah. So, what is your deployment model? You referenced that obviously you have, did you call it Zixi as a service?
Yes.
And
So, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and so there's Zixi as a service, which sounds to me like it might be a little more of your classic SaaS type offering. Is that the right way to think about it?
Yeah, I'd say it's a SaaS and maybe PaaS, platform as a service, kind of
Yeah,
combination
got
of
it.
those. So, going back to the beginning, our deployment model is we have, we're a software company. We have
Mm,
software that you can deploy on-prem, in the cloud. You get licenses, license
mhm.
from Zixi and apply the license, and you're running the software, and that's a Zixi broadcaster. Um, and then with our Zen Master orchestration and control plane, that's that is a cloud-hosted SaaS style uh, interface, multi-tenant interface. So you log into that into ZenMaster, and then from there you can manage all of your instances of your Zixi broadcaster, whether they're on-prem or in the cloud.
Yeah,
So that is like a true SaaS. And then Zixi as a service, what we're doing there is we're saying, okay, you're still going to get ZenMaster orchestration control plane, but instead of you, the customer, having to have your own account on
yeah,
any of the cloud providers,
yeah,
um, where ZenMaster would launch those instances, we're going to provide that infrastructure for you, and so we're managing the infrastructure. We get the egress costs for all those streams, and then we wrap all of that cost into the pricing for this
yeah.
service.
Got
Um,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of convenience there, as well as now I don't have to have an engineer or two or three or four, dedicated to, because even though the cloud is very convenient, you still need to have engineers focused on, keeping those services up and running and operational and fixing things when they stop working and, you know,
But what we found, I think when we started with Zixi as a service, what we thought was it would be the smaller customers
yeah,
that did not have a team, that can manage cloud
sure.
infrastructure, that would gravitate towards this. What we were surprised by was our customers for ZAS tend to be the larger organizations, the well-known
I, I know it.
broadcasters, or uh, you know uh, platforms,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and
Probably some very large cable companies, telcos. In other words, quite non-intuitively, those organizations you would normally think like, well, they have armies of
exactly.
engineers and ops people and folks that's their job, right? Which they do have armies. It's just those armies are busy doing other things
They're
in a lot
busy,
of
and
cases.
I think there's let's just call it political alignment that has to happen inside in the
Yeah.
companies, and sometimes they need to move
Yeah.
much quicker than their internal organization can move.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
so in these cases, often what Zixi as a service a method for onboarding customers into the Zixi world, the Zixi platform world, and they may live there for a year, and in that time, inside those organizations, they'll manage to figure out, okay, who internally will own managing this infrastructure in the long run. And so those customers will roll off of Zixi as a service and become basically customers of the licensed software and the Zen Master orchestration, but no longer use our infrastructure. So
Yeah.
it, I mean, it's interesting how when you plan things, uh, what actually happens can turn out completely different. But it really turns out that Zixi as a service uh, is more of an onboarding because we move quick. A customer comes
Yeah.
to us with requirements, and we can have them up and running within days, with 100 streams or 200 streams live, and they just can't do that organizationally. Um, but for the long term, we also feel that it's better for them to manage their own infrastructure because they have infosec requirements, and they have security teams that want to get involved, and
Yeah.
we can't necessarily uh, manage all that for them. But it's really about moving quick when even if it's a very large customer, if they need to move quick,
Yeah.
we can get them up and running very quick, and then they have time to
Yeah.
understand and architect internally how they're going to
Yeah.
manage this big deployment that they have and that they're planning to grow over the long term.
Yeah. So let's say I'm a streaming service and I want to deploy Zixi, and I'm an Akamai customer.
Hmm.
Um, Walk me through how does that work? So, of course, you need the VPU accelerated instances.
Hmm.
Um, and is it that you're having a really direct conversation with them about every piece, i.e., here's the cost advantage, or does the customer kind of come to you and already have a good idea? Hey, we've been talking to NetInt, we've done an evaluation, happy with the quality, we want to use NetInt. What does that look like? And then are you guys like kind of marking up that, or do I go secure those VMs and then I'm paying you a license fee for the software? Just, again, I think a lot of listeners would be curious just purely at a like, business process sort of,
Uh-huh. Yep.
how does it work?
Okay. Yeah. So maybe let me start with an example of an existing customer.
Yeah.
So we do have one customer today that is using our platform to do stream ingest and stream thousands of events a year,
Yeah.
and they are
So
using our
they're ingesting, and then are they also distributing, or
yeah,
are
yeah,
they
so they're ingesting it,
onboarding
and
to
then
other networks?
yeah, they're ingesting it, and then they are distributing it to other direct consumer distribution partners. So
Okay.
in this case, this customer is not doing that OTT workflow
Yeah.
themselves,
Yeah.
but they're distributing it to partners who then do that last OTT
Got it.
workflow
In
with
other words,
subscribers.
distribution to the actual end viewer,
Yeah,
that.
exactly. So they use our transcoding today, and they're thinking about density, and so they're interested in looking at our integration of the NetInt VPU, and so the process with them, and we're kind of right in the beginning of this, is go spin up some instances on Akamai, and with the NetInt VPU, install the latest release of the software, and then just run with it. Try it out. So they already have a lot of source streams that they
Yeah.
can test with because they're an active customer already. So for them, it's really just swapping one thing for the next.
Yeah.
There's no extra cost from our perspective.
And so you're not marking up. So if they happen to be a really big Akamai customer and they've negotiated a great 3-year deal and they're getting, they continue to get that great pricing, right, on that VM,
Yeah,
and
because
then
they're
they're
running it
just
ththemselves. So
yeah.
here I guess what I'm
Yeah,
describing is
yeah.
they're
I realize
self-hosted,
if it's
or I mean
as a
yeah,
service,
yeah, it's
you know,
their
that's
Akamai account. So all they do is right now they have our software installed on, Cloud X.
Yeah.
They're just going to install our software on Akamai with
Yeah.
the NetInt cards,
Yeah.
and then basically try to replicate their workflows there, their transcoding
Yeah.
workflows.
Yeah.
Um, and from a cost standpoint, we do charge for our transcoding feature in general, but we don't. There's no difference between whether someone's using NVIDIA or um,
Exactly. It's only the
yeah,
operational cost, the
right,
difference
exactly,
between, what an instance with the
right,
GPU, or
yep,
just if your CPU, you're going to need that many more VMs, to be
yep,
able to do it. And
yes.
yeah,
So for an
understand.
existing customer, it's really simple.
Yeah.
Just give it a try. They
Yeah.
already
Yeah.
know our software. Now, if there were a new customer, new to Zixi, maybe new to NetInt, then there we kind of go through our normal sales process, just discussing the value we provide and so on. But the NetInt aspect of the transcoding piece is not really a specific discussion, other than what we can say is, if you need to scale, if you're gonna need, a lot of density, then using the NetInt VPUs on Akamai would be a good way to get that density and the TCO advantages that
Yeah.
provides.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty simple point of reference, because Akamai has a couple. They have three different instances today. Um, you know, uh, Hopefully in time, maybe soon, they'll have a few more to introduce. But because they're getting a lot of market feedback about different configuration sizes, but they basically have a single card and a dual card version. And when you think about that, whole VM starts at 42 cents an hour, and that VM with a single T1U can do 32 1080p 30 HEVC H.264 and AV1 streams. Like, the economics are just, so presumably, and I don't know what size VM you need, so maybe that base model is a little too small. I don't actually know, but but you could run your software, or run some transcoding framework, on that VM, do all that encoding at that price. It's no wonder to me that your business is really taking off.
Yep. Yep.
Because it's just so cost effective. And then it's really fascinating. You made a comment about, the proverbial buy versus build, and I appreciate you actually had a very balanced statement. On one hand, there's times when it makes a lot of sense for people to move off building and go to buying, i.e., go to your platform. And sometimes it actually makes sense to go the other way. Either there's, somebody just needs control, like you said, info security. I mean, there can be some very valid reasons, and it's absolutely, of course, we never hate losing customers, but it makes sense. But we are seeing where we sit as an engine provider. It's like I often describe VPUs as the engine, but people ultimately need a car. And then, of course, they need roads to drive on. So roads are like the infrastructure.
Yep.
The
Yep.
car is the software framework, like what Zixi has built, and then we're the engine. The point is, you need all three. It's not like you can say, "Oh, look at my beautiful roads." Okay, but
Yep.
what am I going to
and
do?
it and it needs to be able to scale. I mean,
Yeah,
if you're if your operation
yeah,
is growing,
yeah,
you might be doing 100 events a week
yeah,
right now, but your goal is to be doing 1,000 events a week or
yeah.
5,000.
Absolutely,
You have to be thinking about all the pieces of your
yeah,
architecture. How are they going to scale up, and will your costs scale at a lower
yeah,
rate
yeah,
than your business,
yeah,
because ultimately, you definitely don't want to lose margin, and you'd like to even increase your margins as you scale your operation.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. And, I think this is kind of a nice way to transition to wrapping up our conversation here, because you're hitting on, just some super key points. Taking, we're very, yes, especially in this particular conversation, we talk quite a bit about NetInt. But actually, we try on Voices of Video not to, it's not only about NetInt. Sometimes I'm like, I really don't want to talk about NetInt because people generally know where to find us and what we do. But the fact of the matter is that where the market's at, the market needs, and so now talking about Zixi, the market needs scalable solutions that are flexible, that are cost effective, but not just cost effective like in your licensing fee. So yeah, I'm sure you guys have to compete just like everybody with other people who may have similar claim to have similar offerings, and so you have to be price competitive, but operationally you have to be price competitive. And I think this is something that not everybody has kind of gotten attuned to in the industry, is like you could give away your software. I'm not saying you, I just mean a general
Yep. Yep.
statement. Somebody could give away their software, but if I've got to spend 10x operationally to run it, like you're no one's going to take it, you know? So there's that really important, there's a scale that you mentioned, and that's what you guys have done. And you have a lot of flexibility of how it's run. Somebody can run it themselves. They can run on their own infrastructure. They can run on Akamai. You can run it for them as a service. I just think that this is the flexibility that the market needs, and the market wants. That's what we're seeing anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the cost front, there's the operational costs in terms of um, the teams of people you need to manage and monitor, and then you also have part of that cost is the cost of the virtual machines on the cloud provider,
Yeah.
the cost of egress, and so I think between
We didn't touch on
yeah.
egress.
So between what Zixi and in this case the Zixi protocol can save you on egress costs, and then marry up that with what the NetInt VPU can save you on transcoding costs in terms of the VMs. You put these things together and you really are coming up with a good story around how
Super
this solution
compelling.
together, it
Yeah.
really gives you lower total cost of ownership. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
TCO is kind of a little bit buzzwordy, but there's something real there. Like
To the
there's
CFO, TCO is not a buzzword.
yeah,
I mean, it's yeah, no, I totally get your point. I'm not making the comment about what you said. It's just to reinforce it. To the CFO, everything is TCO.
exactly,
Um,
exactly.
hey, I have a question, Tim, before we, bring this conversation in for a landing. The Zixi protocol, does that become, is that just sort of baked in, like the fees and, the costs associated with that when you use the platform, or is there still an added cost to that, or how does that work?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, I guess similar to the maybe the misconception out there that Zixi is only a protocol. There's
Yeah.
also this misconception that Zixi is expensive. What we charge for is the platform, and it doesn't matter to us if you're using SRT in and out of our platform or the Zixi protocol or RIST. It's the same. Like there's
Interesting.
yeah, and one thing, and we have changed how we go to market from a pricing standpoint as well to try to reinforce that it's not about the protocol, it's not about how many bytes you're delivering with the protocol.
Yeah.
So to align ourselves with our customers' business, if we think of our customers, let's say you're a live event provider, what you think about what's your margin per live event. So
Yeah.
if that's the case, you need to know how much money am I making per live event
That's right.
and how much money am I spending per live event.
Yeah. To produce it and deliver it.
Exactly. So we've aligned our business models around how our customers think about their business. If it's a live event customer,
Mm.
then our pricing to them is per live event or per, maybe per live event hour, because that fits in their model. Their CFO can understand that. He can't
Yeah.
understand how many
Yeah,
bytes is
trying to
delivered.
sign an annual deal, I can imagine somebody's like, but I only do 20 events a year, like
Right.
what's that's got to be
Right.
hard, right?
Um, yeah, and then similarly, for our customers that are linear customers have linear channels, even for them, it's much easier for their CFO to understand, what are my costs per channel versus how much revenue do I make per channel. And so in that case, we align to their business as well. So, the way they think about it. But these costs are the same regardless of protocol. So we have customers
Interesting.
that are using our platform, and
Yeah.
90% of their streams might be SRT streams.
Yeah.
Perfectly fine.
Yeah.
That customer pays the same thing that a
As if
customer whose
Zixi.
90% of their streams are Zixi streams.
Yeah.
It's just that was it didn't make sense you know to kind of go down that path of like trying to differentiate
Yeah.
between the protocols. It's really at this point the core of our engineering work is layering features on top of this platform. That's what we're focusing our engineering teams on, and those features are what make the platform more valuable. And so that's what we want our customers to be paying for us for is that value, that being able to manage and orchestrate huge deployments at scale with various types of seamless switching or HTML overlay or different transcoding use cases. That's
Yeah.
that's really the value that we're selling. It's not how many bytes are
Yeah.
we delivering with protocol A or protocol B.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's, as a marketer and, also someone who has lived most of my career at the intersection of product and, business strategy and then marketing. I think that's a very, in my humble opinion, a very smart decision, that
Yeah.
you made. It also makes it simple. And boy, I'm sure that you will agree with me. The last thing our industry and our market needs is more complexity. Like make it simple to understand, simple to buy, simple to deploy, and guess what? People will actually buy it and use it. you know?
And make it simple for the CFO who's
Yeah,
making the
yeah,
who's signing checks. I mean, that it
yeah,
really has to fit in the CFO's modeling of their business,
yeah,
right? That's
yeah,
that's really the way to um, reduce the headwinds on getting a customer to purchase and deploy a new solution is make it really simple for the CFO to understand what his costs are, and then
yeah.
he can relate that to his revenue, and then he understands his margin.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Well, Tim, this has been a really great conversation. I've enjoyed hearing the behind the scenes and a little bit of the, of course, I knew most of the story, having
Mhm.
worked alongside you and Randall and the rest of the NetInt team and various folks from Zixi. But we're really happy to have you as a part of the VPU ecosystem. And we're really excited for the launch. We're excited to come alongside and help promote. And we believe that it's rising tides raises all boats, and we have an engine that is super powerful, but we need solutions like Zixi to then deploy it and then bring it to market in a way that an average customer can use. So we really appreciate your support.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a good journey.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, good. And thank you to the listeners of Voices of Video. We are very excited for 2026. We're going to be launching a whole new slate of interviews and bringing some more great content to you. So continue to stay tuned and keep doing it. Thank you.